Hello, and welcome back to Podfinder. My name is Philip, and I'm here to talk about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. This is part of a series I am producing covering the various deities in the Pathfinder role-playing game and its setting, the world of Golarion. Last time, I covered Nethys, the god of magic. In this installment, I am covering Gorum, the god of battle, strength, armor, and weapons. Gorum is a mighty and violent god, worshipped throughout the Inner Sea region, but primarily in northern Avestan. His moniker among his followers is Our Lord in Iron. His greatest area of concern is battle, though weapons and armor hold his interest as well. Outside of his dedicated clergy, he is primarily worshipped by soldiers, mercenaries, barbarians, and warrior cultures, especially half-orcs. Gorum's appearance is broadly unchanging among his followers. He appears as an enormous humanoid, always the largest figure in the room. He is clad in heavy armor, made primarily from metal, and a great helm obscures his face. Only his eyes, bright burning red, are visible. The design of the armor will vary from culture to culture, but it will always cover his entire body. He wields a massive greatsword in his hands, too huge for any but the Lord in Iron himself to possibly swing. So, basically just guts in the Berserker armor. Seriously, my dude looks like a Dream Evil album cover. It's awesome. Gorum makes his home on Elysium, in a place called the Clashing Shore. His realm is an immense battlefield, dotted with small fortresses. Here, the Lord in Iron and his followers wage unending war for all eternity. Fortresses are seized and retaken with regularity, then crumble to dust only to reform the next morning so battle can begin anew. Unlike other deific realms where combat is the norm, such as that of Cait and Caelian, individual accomplishments are not celebrated. Only the blood rage of battle matters. How Gorum came to live on Elysium is unknown, though his realm is ringed with a haphazard circle of stones. Each stone has been impaled with the blade of an Azada, a type of celestial being, all bearing the same inscription. Thus the pledge is sealed, and thus you are accepted, forever with our thanks, come what may. Devout followers of Gorum, called Gorumites, are tasked with living lives of endless battle, seeking out conflict to forever test themselves. Followers must participate in fair combat, testing their strength against the strength of their enemies in a straightforward contest. This doesn't preclude worshippers from employing complex battle tactics, or even from using ranged combat at times. In fact, clever tactics are an important aspect of the faith, and knowledge of historic battle tactics is one of the few academic areas followers are encouraged to study. Faithful Gorumites, however, will never employ poisons or diseases against their enemies, and assassination is likewise forbidden. Battle is the meaning of life for Gorum's faithful, so followers will often make a living as professional warriors, either as mercenaries or in standing armies. Temples to Gorum are fortified, defensible structures, always ready for battle. They are stocked with weapons, armor, and supplies, meaning they are prepared to withstand a siege or to serve as a staging area for military operations. These facilities are intended to serve practical military purposes beyond devoted worship. Aside from these broad strokes, temples are constructed in all manner of building styles and from all types of materials. Given that the faith is tasked with stockpiling weapons and armor, it is common for adventurers to offload discarded gear from fallen foes at Gorumite churches. Shrines are similar to temples in design variability, though they most often take the form of an arranged pile of stones with a metal helm or weapon placed on top. While the Church of Gorum has no holy text, worship services do contain chanting and recitations. A set of 7 poems, called the Gorumskagat, are typically set to rhythm, then performed by a congregation. Each poem is assigned a specific rhythm by the church, so even those followers who don't speak the local language will understand which poem is being recited. The rhythm of each poem is also intended to use on the battlefield. One might serve as a marching song, while the other might work to maintain order between troops in preparation for a charge. Gorum is most commonly worshipped in northern Avestan, primarily in areas rife with conflict. Areas around the Eye of Dread, including Belkzen, Numeria, Nirmathas, the Gravelands, and the River Kingdoms, all serve as centers of worship for Gorum. His faith is also common in the far northern lands of Brevoy, the realm of the Mammoth Lords, and in the land of the Lenorm Kings. Humans make up a large portion of Gorum's faithful, mostly of Kelid, Shoanti, and Ulfin descent. Orcs and dwarves also worship the Lord in Iron in large numbers. Half-orcs in particular find Gorum's faith attractive, and the majority of them believe that Gorum himself is a half-orc. Gorum was not one of the original gods born at the beginning of creation. Legend says that after the orcs first came to the surface of Golarion during the Age of Darkness, the conflicts between them and the surface-dwelling humans gave birth to Gorum. The church teaches that after a single climactic battle, a lone suit of armor stood over the legions of the fallen, and thus Gorum was born from the chaos of war. This tale gives some credence to the idea that Gorum might indeed be a half-orc underneath his armor, since the conflict between the two ancestries brought him into existence. However, this legend conflicts with the stories of Rovagug's imprisonment, in which Gorum is said to have toiled with Torag, under the guidance of Pharasma, to forge the Dead Vault, the great prison within Golarion to cage the rough beast. This happened during the Age of Creation, thousands of years before the Age of Darkness. Gorum has few positive relations with his fellow deities. He maintains a generally positive relationship with Asmodeus, but this is almost entirely pragmatic and has little to do with any common ground or shared beliefs. Asmodeus's machinations regularly lead to combat on a grand scale, which feeds Gorum's bloodlust. Gorum also has a good relationship with Besmara, the pirate queen, since the two of them share a love of the excitement they get from a good fight. Besmara is far more interested in the challenge of combat than the spoils of war, and that mirrors Gorum's own beliefs. The Lord in Iron also has a mild rivalry with Zuriel, the Horseman of War. Nethys is the one god who seems to best understand Gorum's obsession with battle, at least to some extent. The two gods share their singular focus, with magic for Nethys and battle for Gorum. While they aren't allies per se, they certainly have an understanding of one another. Each one collects power and skill and cares little for the morality of how it is used. While Gorum has no true allies, he most definitely has enemies. He despises Urgathoa for her domain over disease. Disease robs strength from healthy warriors and saps the strength of armies. Every life lost to disease in a war camp is a life which cannot be gloriously spent on the field of battle. Urgathoa, for her part, is quite intrigued by Gorum's outraged insistence that his followers should be spared from disease so they might die in glorious battle. Being the impetuous pot-stirrer that she is, she has allowed several of her cults to begin training with weapons coated in diseases intended to wound their foes. Survivors will find their strength slowly sapped until they simply waste away, unable to even lift their own limbs. Gorum has yet to respond to this new development, but he is unlikely to allow this to stand unchallenged, and he isn't exactly known for his subtlety. Personally, I think Urgathoa is an idiot for picking a fight with the literal god of war, but hey, what do I know? Similarly to his views on gods of disease, Gorum looks down upon gods of assassination, like Achekek and Norgorber. He treats them with nothing but contempt, viewing them as weak and cowardly. In conflicts among the gods, it is rare for either side to plan on Gorum's help, since he is notoriously difficult to work with and is known to switch sides mid-fight on a whim. Most deities try to avoid him, and generally only ever make contingency plans for if they should ever draw his ire. Interestingly, this adversarial relationship between most gods and Gorum doesn't always translate to followers on Golarion. Followers of Gorum are known to participate in competitive pitched battles with followers of other military-minded deities, including Torag and the Imperial Lord Falena. These are generally training exercises intended to allow each side to test their mettle and improve their skills. For players who might be interested in characters who follow Gorum, here are a few useful details. For those using the alignment rules, Gorum is chaotic neutral and will accept clerics of that or chaotic evil alignment. His edicts are to attain victory in fair combat, to push your limits, and to wear armor in combat. Conversely, to kill prisoners or surrendering foes, to prevent conflict through negotiations, or to win a battle through underhanded tactics or indirect magic are all anathema to Gorum. His holy symbol is a sword driven into a mountain. His domains are confidence, destruction, might, and zeal. Gorum's sacred colors are gray and red, though the gray is commonly understood to represent metallic materials such as iron and steel. Followers of Gorum will wear these colors, but generally prioritize wearing heavy armor made from metal. Followers will decorate their armor in a wide variety of ways, but many will also take inspiration from Gorum himself and keep their armor broadly unadorned except for wicked-looking spikes. Combat trophies will serve as the primary form of decoration for many followers, from pelts of dangerous beasts to belts and decorations taken from the gear of defeated foes. Most followers of Gorum will also be heavily scarred from their time on the battlefield, and these scars are almost universally seen as a mark of pride. Gorum's favored weapon is the greatsword, and many of his followers wield this weapon with tremendous skill. The Lord in Iron does not require his followers to use this weapon above others, however. Nearly every weapon type in Avestan can be and has been a tool for the faithful of Gorum. Heavy two-handed weapons like the Great Axe, the Great Club, and the Maul are very common, but so are smaller weapons wielded in a sword-and-board style of combat. Gorumites vastly prefer strength-based styles of combat and rarely use finesse weapons. Likewise, they tend toward focusing on melee combat, though many followers will be proficient with ranged weapons as well. Gorum's favored animal is the rhinoceros, though this animal is relatively rare in the regions where the faith of Gorum is most common. The Lord in Iron also appreciates all war-trained animals, and many followers will train animal companions to join them in combat. These animals range from hounds and horses to bears and mammoths. Many followers will acquire armor for their animal companions as well. Gorum's formal clergy is made up almost exclusively of clerics, and the vast majority of them are of the war priest doctrine. In addition to their combat buffs, clerics are encouraged to learn healing spells, so they might allow warriors to return to the battlefield. A few druids also find their way into the church, and these tend to focus on melee combat, while polymorphed into animal forms. Outside of the formal clergy, the majority of Gorum's followers belong to melee-focused martial classes. These mostly include fighters, rangers, barbarians, and champions. Additionally, the Ruffian Racket Rogue and the Way of the Vanguard Gunslinger will easily find a place among the faithful. A magus might also be welcomed into the church, as might an armor or weapon innovation inventor, or even a combat-focused bard. Archetypes which add melee skill, heavy armor proficiency, or battlefield mastery to characters will also be common among the followers of Gorum, including the Sentinel, the Mauler, and the Marshal. Check out Barbarians Plus on Pathfinder Infinite for more melee options, or look at Clerics Plus for a deeper dive into a potential War Priest. Archetypes Plus also expands on the Viking archetype in a really cool way, which Gorumites would definitely appreciate. On a side note, I swear I am not a shill for Team Plus on Pathfinder Infinite. I just allow all their rulebooks at my table, and I really like their content. Humans make up the largest portion of Gorum's followers. The Kelid and Ulfin peoples of northern Avestan frequently revere the Lord in Iron, and he is one of the deities which the Shoanti people of Varissia incorporate into their traditional animism. Orcs and half-orcs also make up a large number of followers, and the tribes of Belkzen often war with their neighboring humans over differences in religious belief. Dwarves also frequently worship Gorum alongside their ancestral pantheon, and his domain over heavy armor and weapons fits well with their traditional military practices. Gonzi-style Nephilim might find themselves drawn to the chaos of battle, and therefore the faith of Gorum. Characters of other ancestries can easily find their way to the faith of the Lord in Iron, since all those who go into battle might offer a prayer in his name. Survivors of a battle might convert to the faith if they offered a prayer beforehand and survived against all odds. Devout followers of Gorum will lead lives of constant battle and contest, pitting themselves against their foes bravely and without hesitation. The Church teaches that faith is achieved through strength and skill at arms, so even the most spiritual of priests is a warrior first and a preacher second. Gorumites believe that the spirit of battle, and therefore the spirit of Gorum himself, resides within weapons and armor, so they maintain their equipment with religious devotion. Members of the faith value bravery and consider fleeing from a battlefield to be a cardinal sin. They never strike down helpless foes, as that would besmirch the glory of combat, and will generally accept surrender. Gorumites can make for excellent adventurers due to their thirst for battle and their bravery. If you're looking for some further build inspiration, or to homebrew some content for a follower of Gorum, take a look at his 1st edition page on Archives of Nethys. His deific obedience could definitely inspire some displays of faith for a PC. His divine fighting technique might be fun to try and port over to 2nd edition, but though it might need to be balanced with the modern version of power attack. The Armored Hulk Barbarian archetype might serve to inspire a Barbarian PC build. The Iron Lord's Transforming Silvers are a cool Wondrous item, and the Bloodlight weapon might be fun to bring into 2nd edition as well. For GMs looking to integrate Gorum and his followers into a campaign, here are some ideas. Gorum's current herald is the First Blade, a legendary figure said to have been born from a chip from the Lord in Iron's own sword. His divine servitors are the Zentragts, armored bears which make up the bulk of his armies. Apart from sending these servants, Gorum might communicate his favor to followers by causing their weapons to bleed when touched. Those who earn his ire might experience weapons and armor which rapidly rust away. The Church of Gorum is largely disorganized, separated into local congregations led by warrior priests. They often have little ideological commitment to whatever side they support in a battle that doesn't directly impact them or their well-being. This means that PCs might be facing off against one group of Gorumites in one adventure, then allying with another group a few adventures later. Gorumites might serve as excellent antagonists for an adventure, since their focus on glorious combat means they could reasonably want to fight the PCs even if they and the party were of similar alignments. A group of good PCs might need to acquire an artifact belonging to a congregation of chaotic good Gorumites, and the faithful will force the PCs to fight for the prize even though they might have no problem giving up the artifact itself. Alternatively, evil-aligned followers of Gorum will make for excellent foes who willingly throw themselves against the PCs. Unlike a lot of antagonists, these enemies will fight more or less fair and square. No poison, no fancy tricks. The PCs might even be able to issue one-on-one or two-on-two challenges to these enemies, exploiting their love of battle to help even the odds if the PCs are outnumbered. Gorumites as protagonists or helpers is also entirely possible, since they have rivalries with the churches of many evil deities. If the PCs are being hunted by Red Mantis assassins or Skinsaw cultists, the Church of Gorum might be willing to aid the PCs in confronting the assassins head-on at their base of operations. Alternatively, the Church of Gorum might recruit the PCs to help with a raid on an Urgathoan stronghold, where followers of the Pallid Princess are brewing up some nasty new disease. Finally, the PCs might be able to recruit Gorumites to their side in a large battle. If the PCs are in need of a fighting force to face down an oncoming army, they might travel into some nearby mountains to negotiate with a group of Gorum-worshipping orcs. If the PCs can convince the orcs that glorious battle awaits them, then they might get the army they need. Of course, followers of the Lord in Iron might need some convincing, and nothing will convince them quite as well as a display of martial prowess on the part of the PCs. So, that's it. That's Gorum, the Lord in Iron, the God of Battle. Neither good nor evil, he is a versatile tool for GMs, and a great option for players. Next time, I'll be changing gears a bit and going back to one of the good guy gods, Torag, the dwarf god of the Forge. If you enjoyed this video, consider checking out my rules supplement Expanded Ancestries on Pathfinder Infinite. It adds over 200 new ancestry feats to the game, spread among each of the ancestries not covered by the Pathfinder 2e remaster. And be sure to like and subscribe to see more videos like this.